Contact us to avail the combo offer of General Studies and Public Administration optional with 20% discount.
Good morning everyone. Yes, we will discuss some important articles from today's The Hindu newspaper, 12th October 2021. Okay, so yes, these are the important articles. First of all, we will have a look at these articles. We will try to understand the context and relevance to our examination. Okay, so on first page, India-China commander talks end in impasse. Okay, so yes, yesterday we were talking about this, the outcome of 13th Commander Corps level meeting that happened between India and China. So no outcome, substantial outcome from this meeting. Okay, so nothing to discuss much more on this. You should be knowing about the present status. Only the disengagement happened in Pongyang So Lake region. Okay, so Gogra region, Depsang Plains, Hot Spring. So there we can say that further disengagement is required. The talks are there, but the present commander level talks did not result into any substantial outcome. Okay, so yes, further on page number 6, directly come to the editorial page. Lead article, yes or no, the court must ask about Pegasus. Yes, after so many days again the article is written on Pegasus because no activity is going on in Supreme Court, right. So that's why the writer is saying that court must hear the case at the earliest. Okay, so in initial part again the Pegasus issue is being discussed and the need of immediate hearing by Supreme Court, how it impacts on the fundamental rights of the people. So this particular snooping issue, Pegasus spyware, all this we will discuss from polity and governance perspective. Once again it will be revision for you. Then there is other article, next step is a constitutional right to health. So it is written by Kailash Satyarthi, Nobel Peace Prize winner from India. Okay, so yes, he is talking about need to declare right to health as a constitutional fundamental right. Okay, so we will try to understand why he is saying or emphasizing on such declaration of right to health as fundamental right or in the constitution. Okay, so we will understand need as well as significance of declaring such right as a fundamental right. Okay, so this is important from GS2 paper, health and governance aspect. Now on page number 7, two important articles, new articles, we will say that protecting India's natural laboratories. It talks about geo-heritage of the country and protecting such geo-heritage, why it is important and what measures in the international arena such measures are going on, what are the threats to geo-heritage in India, all these aspects are discussed. Okay, so we will try to know about that. And then there is directly way forward given for climate crisis, tackling the climate crisis. Directly 6 measures, adaptation and mitigation measures are given in this article. In initial part it talks about we can say that the need of having such mitigation and adaptation measures, at the same time the present measures being taken by the government and further which measures are required. This is how we write in the answers also, right. So we need to be aware about the present measures and what future measures are required. Mitigation and adaptation, climate change. Okay. Then further, right. So on page number 10, there is one article saying killing of minorities a threat to democratic fabric of India. National Human Rights Commission, NHRC. Okay, so this is the suo motu recognition by NHRC and it is talking about taking the suo motu recognition of recent civilian killings in Jammu and Kashmir region. Okay, so how it affects the human rights of the people and basics about polity. So whenever such, let's say, statutory bodies and constitutional bodies, they are in news, So basics about that we have to cover for prelims examination. Okay, so here we will talk about NHRC also. Fine. On page number 11, Nobel for research on wages and jobs. So now this is declared Nobel Prize in economics. Okay, so who are these three researchers and what research they have done and the significance of that research. Okay, so this is important for GS3 paper, mains examination also, economics part as well as prelims examination. Fine. So yes, we will discuss these articles one by one in detail. Yes. First article. Next step is a constitutional right to health. Okay, so on page number 6, written by Nobel Peace Prize winner Kailash Satyarthi. Okay, so he is actually child rights activist. Okay, so you should be knowing about him also, basics. Yes. So why he is talking about need of declaring this right to health for all as a constitutional right. Okay, so we will talk about that. So in the initial part he is saying that for what will be the constitutional right to health mean for a citizen of India. So he is taking some examples of weaker sections of society. We know that the significance is largely for weaker sections of society, and he is explaining this by taking example of farmers and weaker, or we can say unorganized workers, migrant laborers, second group of people women, third is children. Let us understand how declaring this as a constitutional right will help these sections. First, you should understand that farmers or workers in unorganized sector, migrant labor. So what happens is they are not covered under any social safety net or health insurance scheme. Largely what happens is whenever they or their family members fall ill, so what happens is whatever the expenditure is happening for that health services, that is out of pocket expenditure. Remember this word, you should write this directly in your answer, out of pocket expenditure. Now you should be also aware that in India, on an average, out of pocket expenditure is 60% of the income of the person, on an average. Okay, so you should be aware that we will not say income of the person, rather whatever the expenditure is happening on the health services, it is around 60% out of pocket. When we say out of pocket, whatever the disposable income available with the person through the salary, that is out of pocket expenditure. Okay, and we will say that largely here the health insurance is not playing its role. Okay. So this is the major problem, and also the welfare schemes of the government, largely they are not reaching to these sections. Second thing we should also understand, women, again a vulnerable section of society, as well as the social barriers for having access to the health benefits. Let me give you some examples. What happens, in the rural area? This is literally, I am let's say giving the example of some experience that I have witnessed in the neighborhood, backyard in the rural areas. Okay, so what happens there is that suppose the woman is pregnant, so let's say daughter-in-law is pregnant, and what they will do sonography. And if suppose the child is male, then that daughter-in-law is given very utmost care, highest level of health care. So she will be admitted in a private care, health, we can say hospital, and she will be given, we can say all the nutrients and all these things will be given. And what will happen when the child suppose is female child? Then daughter-in-law will be admitted to the government hospital without any, let's say, expenditure, minimal expenditure. Or we can say the safety of the daughter-in-law is not at all considered. This is very much, we can say, existent practices in our rural area. These are social barriers. So access to the healthcare, this is we can say largely social barrier for women in rural areas, right? So declaring this right to health for all will help such increase in access, also empowering women also. Now children, now this is also one of the important section of society, will say largely weaker section of society which requires healthcare needs largely. Okay, so children, we know that in India many of these children from the, let's say, rural areas or from, let's say, farmers, or we can say laborers, their children largely they start working as a child labor immediately at the lower age itself. Why? Largely the reasons that have been found by the writer here is to satisfy the income needs, to support the income needs of the family. And why family is facing the problems of income largely is because of more out of pocket expenditure for health service. So to some extent it will help the children. Now when they are working, that means their education is also getting impacted. So they are not getting into the schools, they are not completing their schooling years. Okay, so dropping from the schools will affect their educational outcome, and ultimately when they are growing up their skill levels will be low. Again that will be a economic cycle or virtuous cycle, we call it as vicious cycle, right? So this is actually the problem, especially we will say that to the weaker sections of society. So that's why health as an important aspect of empowerment, capacity building. So we need to declare this as a constitutional right to strengthen these weakened sections of society. These are the examples. Along with that, the other significance of declaring such as a constitutional right, it will transform not only health and well-being of our people, but will act as a leap for the economic and development progress of the nation. How? Can you tell me how it will help economic progress of the country?
Sir, health and manpower will be there at some time, after some time.
Yes. So basically when the workforce is healthy, okay, we know that the today's healthy children are tomorrow's healthy workforce. So it will be more productive, more outcome in the economy. So ultimately economic and development progress, right? So whenever the child is healthy, its cognitive abilities are very well developed, right? So overall intellectual development happens of the child. So that's why we'll say that all the economic and development progress of nation depends on health, and other aspect we talk about education. Now the vision of Ayushman Bharat will be strengthened. Now what is the twofold vision of Ayushman Bharat? We discussed a few days back about this scheme. There are two components of this Ayushman Bharat scheme. One is Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, which talks about health insurance, and other is health and wellness centers, which talks about health infrastructure, right? So how it is going to contribute or strengthen this? Basically we are strengthening our infrastructure and insurance so as to ensure health for all. Do you remember the motive behind this scheme? Universal health care. Universal health care or universal access to health care, we will say that. So basically they are complementary to each other. They are complementary to each other. Then immediate financial security through this right to health. Immediate financial security through this right to health. Basically it is part of social safety, right? So will positively impact family savings. Obviously the out of pocket expenditure will reduce, savings will increase. Savings increase means they will be able to further use that saving in other productive aspect for education of the children, for let's say other basic requirements in the household, right? Nutritional requirements, greater investment, jobs creation on one hand, and in the long term emotional, psychological and social security of the people. Okay, so it is socio-psychological factors as well as economic aspects. All these are strengthened through constitutional right to health for all. Okay, so there can be question in GS2 paper. We are expecting this question because when the national health policy was declared, no, so there was actually debate on universal health care as a fundamental right. Okay, so again this article is written, so we can expect such question. Discuss the need and significance of declaring right to health for all as constitutional right. You should be aware that a right to health is to some extent interpreted by Supreme Court as fundamental right under Article 21, but that is right to health for not all, rather that is talking about right to have access to the health care. It is talking about access to the health care. Okay, so basically the government is largely responsible for providing the health care. But what if the right of the person is violated? Fundamental right, na? So when it is violated, the person can go to the courts to enforce those rights. So this will strengthen the people, rights of the people. Basically it is talking about social justice aspect also. Now moving on, yes, any question regarding this?
Sir, most of the primary centers are government doctors, sir. And the same town that government hospital doctors are working as a private institution, sir. But the more popularity getting private institution, there is less popularity getting primary health care of government, sir. That is the main psychological awareness of the people, sir. That is not going to be implementing in the society.
This is the major aspect that the doctors, they are not ready to work in the rural areas. Okay, so to some extent lack of, let's say, facilities, first thing. Second thing, we can say, we can understand that the nature of infrastructure that we have in the rural areas, to some extent that is also very poor. Okay, and demand factors, we will say pull factors. So lucrative private sector is there, salary is more, money is more, income is more. So obviously because of that, both factors are there, push factor, pull factors, right? So the government need to focus on strengthening the infrastructure, providing good infrastructure, and then we can say that the doctors will. Up till now you need to know that even rural areas, they did not have any kind of connectivity, road connectivity also. This was also major barrier. You know, my sister, my brother, actually they are doctors. Okay, now the brother, he has completed MD and he is not interested in even working at district level. He wants to serve, let's say in Mumbai, Pune, such metropolitan cities now. Okay, so basically the motive is not serving largely in rural areas. Try to understand this. The motive is to have a comfort, but that is other thing, that my brother is having some, let's say, medical conditions, so he is not eligible for working in the rural areas for that purpose. Okay, so that is different aspect, but largely the doctors are actually focusing on working in only urban areas. So that's why we see all tertiary healthcare services in largely concentrated in urban areas. Okay.
Sir, can we build medical colleges in a rural area? So both will be solved.
Yes, but at present, are you aware that not even all districts in India are having district hospitals and colleges, government colleges? So there is lack of institutions. That's why, let's say, crunch of human resource. Okay, so healthcare professionals very less in India, and whatever the WHO norms are there, less than that we have in India. Okay, so that is the problem, we will say. Okay, so yes, the government is working, and this is the wake up call for the government, COVID-19, right? So in future we can expect the number of more seats, more doctors and nurses, healthcare workers. Okay, now this article, the yes or no, the court must ask about Pegasus. Now about Pegasus, some of you may be starting preparation now onwards, so you should be aware about what happened. Pegasus is actually the spyware. Some of the non-profit organizations in the world collaborated and they had some kind of investigative journalism and they released the names of the people who are on this list of spyware attack, we will say that. Now this Pegasus, which is developed by NSO company of Israel, right? So this company argue that they only sell this to the governments, okay, sovereign governments of the different countries. So for that purpose, and this particular list that was released by these non-profit organizations had many names from India. So they belong to different categories of people like journalists, or we will say that industrialists, let's say former judges also, politicians also, right? So activists also, civil rights activists. So that's why it is being said that there should be some kind of investigation into it. Along with that, the government should come clean on this. Whatever the, let's say, allegations are there, that whether the Indian government is using this Pegasus spyware against some of the people, snooping and right to privacy, the breach of right to privacy is happening here. Okay, so that's why it was in news. Now we should also understand that this issue is not new, rather recent one. So what happened in 2018, for the first time this issue came into light at the world level also, and in 2019 WhatsApp company confirmed this, that some of the accounts of the people, this has been infected by this Pegasus spyware. So that time also it made a lot of, let's say, uproar in the political discourse, and from that onwards there were also, let's say, news that those involved in Bhima Koregaon case, those Bhima Koregaon violence incident that happened, so those activists, their electronic devices were also infected. This was also let's say revealed later on. So this shows that the state, that is the government or the executive, is to some kind having surveillance or mass surveillance over, let's say, these people, especially those who are very much critical of the policy of the government, right? So that's why the concerns are there. Now regarding this Pegasus issue, when the police, by those infected, or let's say their devices are infected here, or those who are actually getting impacted, they filed the plea in Supreme Court. Okay, they themselves filed the plea in the Supreme Court, and basically the government in the Supreme Court is stonewalling the issue. What is stonewalling? The literal meaning says that avoiding or evading the truth. Okay, so stonewalling the issue. So basically the government is not saying yes or no. Rather, the government is not at all coming forward and saying, let's say, or bringing clarity on the issue. It is saying, simply saying that we cannot give information about it. And why? The reason that the government is providing is in the name of national security. Now the writer is also funnily saying that the national security is being used in different aspects of the government, or we can say executive actions, in the name of justifying those actions. Okay, so be it we can say that Jammu and Kashmir, the internet issue, shutdown issue, or we can say that the application of UPA Act and that Public Safety Act is there, or we can say that the NIA Act is there, right? So in the name of national security, the rights of the people are violated. And such instances are largely, we can say that whenever, let's say, there is some kind of criticism about this argument, the government is saying that, don't you want national security? Okay, so do you want to compromise national security? So the question comes of patriotism. So whole issue is sidelined, and the question is of patriotism. Okay, so are you we can say patriotic or not? So if you are patriotic, then give preference to. Okay, so basically जो बोलते हैं ना कि ऊपर ऊपर से हटा देना इशू को, sideline कर देना. But we need to understand that whenever the fundamental rights of the people are not being protected by the executive, then the third organ of the state, that is Supreme Court or judiciary, independent judiciary that is there in our constitution, so that needs to come forward and protect the fundamental rights of the people. As we know that parliament is also not successful in holding the executive accountable on this Pegasus issue, because even the questions that are asked to the ministers, there also they are evading all these questions. RTI, under RTI there are no answers regarding Pegasus. Okay, so this is the situation, and only solution is Supreme Court, the case. But during August, September, whatever the, let's say, hearing that happened, and in the last hearing, Supreme Court said that we will try to form one inquiry committee on that. That was the last statement. After that, there is no hearing. Now, Supreme Court's conduct has not been limited to inaction. Rather, it has further stepped into, we can say, let's say here Supreme Court disapproved the committee set up by West Bengal government to investigate Pegasus. So the writer is saying that the Supreme Court should not have done that. It is the, let's say, prerogative of the executive to look into these aspects. Why Supreme Court has? Just in the name of the matter is subjudized. Okay, so matter is subjudized in the Supreme Court, then why state government should have independent inquiry? Such kind of things. Okay, so basically the Supreme Court itself is not working, and it is not allowing others to work in this area. Okay, at the same time, the issue should not fall victim to death by committee. Now, what is this term? You can use this in essay or let's say those having public administration. Death by committee means basically whenever the government is facing such kind of issue, where let's say criticism of the policy bill is happening or all these things are happening, so government forms one committee to inquire into. Supreme Court forms one committee to inquire into. And what happens? The committee goes on, let's say, investigating, and let's say the timing of the investigation, let's say 2, 3 years, 4 years, and up till that time, the issue is completely buried. It is not at all in news. Okay, and basically the report is submitted. No one knows about this. There is no media limelight for that report. So this is called as death by committee. Okay, so this term is used in this article, so you can use this. You know about how for any kind of thing there is committee formation, be it formal or informal, okay, by judiciary or executive. For parliament already there are committees. Okay, so this is the problem, we will say that, right? Okay, so this is a kind of revision for you. Pegasus issue, already we have discussed this in detail. Even I believe that Ansari sir in ED lectures, he has dealt with this issue in detail also. Okay, right to privacy, how it affects right to privacy as a part of fundamental right, Article 21. This prelims examination they asked, right to privacy is part of which article? Okay, so Article 21, you should remember the Puttaswamy judgment for that. Yes.
Most of the committees are going to be deliberately
Deliberately?
Deliberately they are creating the committees now to avoiding that issue only the first period. After the committee, they are closing the cases also.
Yes, actually you should be aware that assurance is very important. Na? Whenever there are negotiations, when suppose the different parties are negotiating on a common table, there is some kind of assurance required. We will look into this matter. Formation of committee is this thing, assurance. Like Supreme Court gave assurance to the farmers that yes, we are forming committee to scrutinize these farm bills. or Farm Acts. So the committee was formed and already the scrutiny is being done, but the report is in non-public domain. What happened to the recommendations of that committee? We are not aware about that. Okay. So this is what happens largely in government also. Executives will say that not, let's say, Supreme Court, whatever the committee is formed, largely they have some kind of appropriate actions on that, but in recent times we can say such proactiveness is not shown. Okay. Yes. Now next article, protecting India's geo-heritage. Now you should understand what is geodiversity or geo-heritage. So like social diversity, we have geodiversity also. We know that social diversity, cultural diversity that we have, we always say about this, right? So geodiversity is related to geomorphological features, and landforms in the country. So there are variety of such landforms, substructures are there which have been evolved over the long geological history of the earth. So the article also mentions about how Indian peninsular mass broke away from Gondwana land and then started drifting towards Eurasian landmass or plate. Okay, so how that happened, then subducted under this Eurasian plate and then folding of Himalayas. Okay, so this Himalayas were formed, different geological processes resulted into different landforms, be it Western Ghats, formation of Vindhyas, formation of Malda fault and separation of Meghalaya plateau. So all these processes have created unique kind of features on Indian subcontinent. Okay, and that's why we have this geodiversity in India. Also some extraterrestrial activities resulting into unique features, like we know that Lonar Lake in Maharashtra. So that was formed due to meteorite impact, right? So there are many such features. It is giving the example of Gulf of Kutch and the dinosaurs remains in the Gulf of Kutch. So there is geopark in the Gulf of Kutch. Then there are, let's say, recently in Rajasthan, Jaisalmer and Barmer district, there were, let's say, footprints of dinosaurs were found in Rajasthan also. Okay, so such kind of, let's say, things are basically part of geodiversity and our geoheritage. However, there is lack of geological literacy, awareness among the people, and lack of interest on behalf of government as well as academicians towards this protecting geoheritage and geodiversity. We know that what is taught in our schools, largely which subjects focused by the teachers? Science, physics, maths and science, that is only focused, right? So social science is ignored. We know that geography, history, it is not given that importance. Okay, so even at the college level, no one is opting for these subjects. Largely we will say that majority they are opting science, then want to do graduation in the science only, engineering and science. This is the situation that we have. Along with that, the government support towards this subject, be it in terms of research or protecting such kind of geoheritage, is very much poor. So that's why we will say that there is poor geological literacy in the country. The awareness through educational activities in geoheritage parks will make it easy for us to memorialize past events of climate change and appreciate adaptive measures to be followed for survival. This is the major significance at present. We know that there has been climate change event in geological history of the earth. There has been ice age. There has been, let's say, global warming also after this ice age. Okay, various periods of ice age, then there was warming, then again cooling, then warming. And because of these, how animals survived through these ice ages as well as warming periods. How different animals survived. if we find some information about them, then we will also know about the adaptive measures to be taken. Okay, so this is significance of geoheritage, we will say. Now in international efforts, first such efforts led by UNESCO, first international symposium on conservation of our geological heritage happened in France. Okay, so in late 1990s, UNESCO facilitated efforts to create a formal program promoting global network of geoheritage sites. Okay, so today there are 169 global geoparks across 44 countries. Geoparks many a times in news. On the behalf of India also, many proposals are given by Geological Survey of India to declare some of the sites as geoparks. But up till now, there is no geopark on this global geoheritage sites network of UNESCO. Okay, there is no such site from India. So this is the situation that we have. Now what are the threats? Many fossil bearing sites have been destroyed in the name of development. So just now whatever the sites we mentioned, be it in Gulf of Kutch, that region, the railways have been laying into that particular area. Now that is destroying that geoheritage that we have. In let's say Rajasthan, where we found this dinosaur marks, there the road widening project is there and this is destroying that part. In Lonar Lake region, there is construction activities in the nearby region that is affecting that geoheritage. Okay, so in this manner we should know what are the threats. Then the protection of geoheritage sites requires legislation, a dedicated law. Let's say how we have dedicated act or law for protecting biodiversity. What is the name? Biodiversity Act 2002. We have Biodiversity Protection Act 2002. So in the same manner we need to have national legislation for protecting geodiversity also. Geodiversity. Okay, so like countries like Vietnam and Thailand, they have national laws, national legislations to protect them. Okay, so we can give the international examples also. Fine, so it is relevant to GS1 paper, geography part. Those who are having geography optional subject, they should be also preparing this particular topic. Now, tackling the climate crisis, measures for mitigation and adaptation. Now yes, in the first part it is giving the reference to IPCC 6th assessment report that was recently released. The findings like 1.07 degrees Celsius temperature in last one decade as compared to 1900 previous century. In one century this much amount, and in future this is going to increase. Then there is global climate risk index 2021. Always write this as a reference whenever we talk about climate change, disaster management. Okay, so global climate risk index 2021, it ranks India 7th highly, let's say, risk having high risk of this climate induced, we can say, events. So global climate risk index 2021. Then this particular report also warns India of extreme weather events, heat waves, intense rainfall patterns. Okay, so this is how in future we can expect more and more natural disasters, right? Now what measures are required, what present measures? First of all we will talk about present measures in India for adaptation and mitigation. So what is mitigation? Mitigation is reducing the impact of all these climate change related instances. For example, in India, related to mitigation, we are actually trying to shift towards renewable energy. So we have target of 450 gigawatt now by 2030. This target we have, right? Then obviously we have also our other NDCs nationally determined contributions. Okay, from that aspect also we can talk about how we are trying to reduce our carbon emissions. Okay, so be it adoption of electric vehicles technology, there is something called as Shunya initiative. We were expecting question in prelims actually this year. Shunya initiative by Niti Aayog for faster adoption of electric vehicles in the country. Okay, so this is also important initiative. Now in terms of adaptation, two important, let's say at present, National Action Plan on Climate Change. There are total 8 such action plans within this NAPCC, right? And then we have National Adaptation Fund. National Adaptation Fund. So in this manner we should remember the present level there are many such government projects, like be it solar projects are there, wind projects are there, wind energy project, hydroelectricity projects, renewable energy is largely focused here. Fine. So further measures which are required, like India can be more prepared for climate change with high quality meteorological data. Right. So obviously we always talk about this when we talk about pre-disaster management, right. So meteorological data, it will help in appropriate early warning system. So basically it is related to disaster risk reduction. It is related to disaster risk reduction. We are reducing the risk and vulnerabilities by early warning system. Then for sustainable production systems, it is necessary to develop well functioning markets for environmentally friendly products and disseminate them for the desired behavioral change. So be it in terms of manufacturing system. So we talk about plastic pollution or energy consume or energy intensive products. We need to reduce such products. We need to find alternative to such products. Production systems. So those production systems which require more energy as an input, we need some kind of alternatives for that. And we need to disseminate this to the common people for behavioral change also, to adopt those products. Okay. Then encourage private sector participation for investment in adaptation technologies and for designing and implementing innovative climate services and solutions, especially in sectors like agriculture, infrastructure, health and insurance. So it is talking about importance of private sector and its investment in critical sectors. Okay, so these are the critical sectors. In future we require their role to be played. Then protect mangroves and forests to address climate related risk. Obviously they are natural shock absorbers. Okay, so whatever the mitigation is going to happen, that is going to happen through these natural carbon sinks, we will say. Okay, forests are carbon sinks. Mangroves, again one of the very important ecosystem against natural disasters, natural hazards in which we can say protecting coastal ecology. Then major social protection schemes must be climate proofed. That means whenever we have, suppose let us say people living in coastal areas. So when we talk about let us say tropical cyclone as the disaster, so its frequency is going to increase in near future. So for that purpose, whatever the social protection is given to coastal communities, this tropical cyclone as a disaster should be part of this scheme. Okay, so such kind of measures are required. Social protection schemes should include these climate induced extreme weather events. For continuous monitoring and evaluation, effective feedback mechanism must be developed for mid-course correction. This is also important. We do not know in future what new kind of disasters we may face. Climate change induced. And for that purpose, there should be feedback mechanism for mid-term course correction. This is important for any kind of policy formulation. Any kind of policy formulation or policy should have feedback mechanism. Okay, systems approach you learn in public administration also, policy formulation approach is there, right? So that has feedback mechanism always, so that helps in further correcting it.
Formulation, implementation, and final feedback, result feedback.
Yes. So obviously that is true for this policy formation related to climate change also. Okay, so some new aspects we found here, so that's why we have added. Okay, now Nobel for research on wages and jobs. Now see here, 3 people are given the Nobel. First half is given to one scientist. Nobel Prize awarded to US based economist David Card for pioneering in research that showed an increase in minimum wage does not lead to less hiring, and that immigrants do not lower pay for native born workers, challenging commonly held ideas. This was held by Trump, earlier US president. Do you know about this, that the outsiders are taking the jobs of natives, making great America great again? So basically this research is helping us to eliminate such kind of prejudices or these unscientific ideas. Okay, so this is good development. The prize was shared with other 2 also for creating a way to study these types of societal issues. For example, Canadian born Dr. Card of University of California was awarded 1/2 of the prize for his research on how minimum wage, immigration and education affects the labor market. Okay, so this is first half, David Card, and while other half was shared by Joshua Angrist from MIT and Dutch born Imbens from Stanford University for their framework for studying issues that can't rely on traditional scientific methods. Basically it is related to again evidence based policy making, or we can say that empirical studies. Project based studies. Okay, this was given to Abhijit Banerjee. Their study happened 2 years back. The economics Nobel was given, Indian born. So Abhijit Banerjee for education pilot project empirical study. So this is how this study also issues that can't rely on traditional scientific methods. So to some extent there is subjectivity in some studying some societal issues, right? So to understand and study those issues, new models being developed by these scientists. Okay, so the division is like this. So remember first one, the relation between minimum wage, immigration, education, how it affects labor market, and second one is related to, let's say, studying the framework for studying the issues that can't rely on traditional scientific methods. Okay. Killing of minorities a threat to democratic fabric of India. So this is suo motu recognition by National Human Rights Commission of India. Okay, so this is good thing. It has also said that it is serious threat of to the democratic fabric of the country and people's right to life, liberty, equality and dignity. Okay, so we can use such statements directly in our answers. Okay, whenever we talk about such hate crimes that are happening, or to some extent how the minorities in different parts of the country. Okay, so minority is not always a particular community like Muslim community. Rather in that region the Hindu community is minority. Okay, so it should not be stereotyped always while giving examples in your answers also. Basically it is threat to our democratic fabric and you should give different kind of examples. Now for polity purpose, basics about this NHRC. Okay, so yes, it is statutory body. Statutory body means it is established through the provisions of law enacted by the parliament. So what is law here? Protection of Human Rights Act 1993. Okay, so under this national human rights as well as state human rights commissions are also established under the same act. Okay, now composition, a multi-member body consisting of chairman and 5 members. Now some of the older versions of M. Lakshmikant book, they will be having some different data here. You should know it is 5 members. Earlier that book mentioned 4 members. So try to make these changes if you are having the, always have the updated version at least after 2-3 years if you are preparing this examination. So many a times such information is updated through various amendments by the government. Qualification, the chairman should be retired Chief Justice of India or Judge of Supreme Court, and the members should be serving or retired judges of Supreme Court, a serving or retired Chief Justice of High Court, and 3 persons out of which at least 1 should be women having knowledge or practical experience with respect to human rights. Okay, 1 from Supreme Court, 1 from High Court, one is retired Chief Justice of Supreme Court, other is serving or retired judges of Supreme Court, and a serving or retired Chief Justice of High Court, and 3 persons remaining. Okay, so this is what we can understand from the qualification. In addition, the commission also has 7 ex officio members. Basically, who are these ex officio members? The chairman of other important national commissions, National Commission for Women, National Commission for Scheduled Tribes, Scheduled Caste, backward classes. So, for the heads of these are ex officio members. Now, appointment, obviously the appointment is by President on the recommendation of 6-member committee. Now, in this 6-member committee, who are the members? The committee is headed by Prime Minister, then other members, yes, leader of opposition in both houses, the speaker and the deputy chairman, okay, and then there is a union minister. Which union minister? Home Minister. For NHRC it is Home Minister. So remember these aspects also, this can be asked in prelims examination. Now the term, the chairman and members hold the office for 3 years or until they attain 70 years, whichever is earlier, 3 years or 70 years. Okay. Now removal, the president can remove chairman or any member from the office. Salaries, allowances and other conditions, they are decided by the central government, not by the parliament. They are not charged upon the Consolidated Fund of India. Rather, they are decided by the central government, not president also. Okay, central government, the typical word you should remember here. Okay, it has all the powers of civil court and its proceedings have judicial character. Okay, so civil courts के power होते हैं उनको. So commission is not empowered to inquire into any matter after the expiry of 1 year from the date on which the act constituting violation of human rights is committed. 1 साल के बाद अगर वो complaint उसमें होता है वो incident के बाद, so that is not recognized by this NHRC. It cannot inquire into that. Okay, the commission is mainly recommendatory in nature. It has no power to punish the violators of human rights nor to award any relief, including monetary relief. Remember that it can only recommend relief. It can recommend compensation. Okay, it cannot award that. This is the difference. Okay, it is recommendatory, advisory in nature. The commission submits annual and special reports to the central government and to the state government concerned, not to the parliament. Not to the parliament, it submits to the central government. Fine. So on the basis of this information, what should be answer to this MCQ?
answer 1, sir.
2 and 3, sir.
This has incorrect, right? It is 1A.
Yes, so it is saying incorrect, right? So yes, first statement consists of chairman and 4 members. This is incorrect. It is having 5 members. So chairman holds or members hold for term of 3 years or 70 years, whichever is earlier. This is correct. Okay, so salaries allowances determined by central government. This is correct. So incorrect is 1 only. So answer is A here. Fine. Okay, so actually this year they did not ask any question about not correct or incorrect, such kind of thing, but every year they ask such 1 or 2 questions. Okay, yes, fine. So these are important articles. Any other question that you have? Okay then, so let us stop. We will meet tomorrow at the same time. Thank you.
Contact us to avail the combo offer of General Studies and Public Administration optional with 20% discount.